Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to SA2B Hero Story PB Analyses. Today I'm going to be taking a look at MasterKuruk's PB. Kuruk is a relatively new runner, but has nonetheless gotten a very impressive time for the relatively short amount of time he's been running the game, coming down to a 38, which is really like getting towards like tier times relative to what you'll see across the whole spectrum of the leaderboard. But he wanted an analysis. There's probably like little bits I can talk about and pick apart. I am feeling still fairly unwell, under the weather, so I was thinking of maybe doing hero story runs, but this is going to be a lot easier on me, and it's something I can just do for somebody, which is nice. So I'm going to first of all establish, hopefully all my volume and stuff's right. We'll find out. A little quieter on this, I think.
He's such a great mod.
That's me he's talking about. He's
Speaking
definitely
of
right.
such a great mod, Draco
Yeah.
with the raid. How's it going, my man?
Yeah, there you go. So before I
literally
get into this proper, I would like to wait until Kuruk is actually in the chat, so I know that he is definitely seeing all this, because I am going to highlight this afterwards so that it's accessible for everyone. But one of the big points of this is that I like do it live with the runner in question around, so they can see my feedback directly and in the moment, and provide any comments or any feedback. So yeah, definitely. Well, this looks like it's going to be the start of Kuruk appearing in the chat, which means that I can definitely begin. Even though this is like specifically for Kuruk as well. This is, as I said, because this is going to be highlighted, this is for anyone's benefit, and for that reason, although I've done PB analyses for other runners before of a similar skill level, I'm not going to be like omitting anything in terms of like, oh well, I already talked about this in so-and-so's analysis, so you don't need me to talk about this. I'm still going to point out anything that I think is worth talking about, because the point of this is that it's to benefit anyone who can benefit from it. So yep, here's Kuruk. Thanks very much for the raid. I have thought about whether to do this with the subject lol in a voice call before, and I've decided against it just so that I can do the commentary and just go through it like at my own pace and at my own flow. But I don't know. It's something I can like maybe consider in the future if someone particularly like wants to be in a call. But I personally prefer to just do this on my own. But we'll just see how it goes anyway. If we'll like get like halfway through it and Kuruk's like really objecting to that format and wants to join, I'm not gonna say no to joining a call. Anyway, let's begin proper.
I just checked who was streaming right now, and I saw you were on, and I was like, man, Draco's such a great guy.
Oh yes,
and
he
then
is.
Right after you raided.
My head fucking kills.
What a coincidence.
I should probably have got more water before I started
yeah,
this.
you just missed it.
Oh,
I just got off the PB,
standard
so I'm running it back.
Rails boarding section. I'm gonna turn the volume down more here.
If you're ending your stream, you're banned. I'm not.
So okay. So first thing to mention is the mentioned this again in some previous tutorials, but the fastest way that you can exit here is well, first of all, the approach that you've got here is actually not really letting you get the fastest exit, because you're going to naturally bump into this car and you'll end up like around here on the speed pad, which is like, you know, 95% of people do this, and yeah, so your controls get locked by the speed pads and you end up around here, which again, most people end up in this situation. But the fastest way you can do this is if I just slow down here so I can actually see what's going on here in finer detail. Judging from where you landed on the car, I'm assuming that you jumped off the end of the ramp. So let's see if that happens here. Yeah, you jumped off the very end of the ramp. Normally this is a good thing, but in this specific instance, if you want to try and get the fast exit, it actually stops you from being able to use the fast exit well, because jumping off the edge of the ramp gives you more distance. I know, the YouTube controls, yeah. 25 is fine for this though. So you can see you hit the car here, and the result of this is because you get more distance and hit the car, you again get your controls locked a little bit here, and you have your angle interrupted slightly, because the best case scenario is that you land before the car and you're able to immediately turn left and go around here. And then once you come up to these speed pads, the plan is to jump, do a neutral jump, just before you collide with these, and then as soon as this camera change happens, you change to doing some downright directional input like this, and that should let you get clean over this fence. And you know, the directional change after that is you have to like play it a bit by ear and just see what works, but generally you should already have control here and be falling towards here, and either be able to land somewhere around here or even on the rail if it's perfect. The neutral is just how I've seen people do it. When I've seen people, because I don't do it myself, but when I've seen people doing the fast strat there, I've watched people's input cam, and it starts with a neutral jump, and then it changes to downright input after the camera change. So that is ostensibly what people are doing for that.
I'm not yet.
Either way.
Also, what's up?
So, nice rail, I like that. This is actually good. So there was just a slight mistake here. The first part of this section was actually very good. So getting this was good. I'm going to slow this like down to half. The timing on this spin dash unroll was quite good because you let the ball form continue over the crest of the hill and then unrolled from it. I actually agree with this because it typically stops you from flying off this hill quite as much, I find. And the right turn here was also pretty good. Like, you've got a pretty good angle here, but then I think you just jerked a little to the left here because I think you just ran into the wall here. Yeah. So I think you just charged and released another instant spin dash here. And that's not ideally what you want to do here. I'm just going to actually get the game up here for a demonstration since I've got it in a different scene. So I'll just be playing through the first 30 seconds of City Escape myself. Man, I said like this is going to be a lot easier for me than like doing Hero Story runs, but I'm essentially going to be doing a lot of Hero Story gameplay anyway, so wow. At the same time, I'll try and do what I mentioned. I'll have a go at doing the what I mentioned before here. No, I can maybe still do it here. We'll see. No, whatever. Maybe not at speed. I'm not sure. So 1, 2, and then you want your third spin dash to come out on the slope like that. So you like did like an instant chain and let the spin dash go around here, which 1, you're changing vertex, which causes you to decelerate, and 2, if you hit this left wall, then you're going to decelerate a lot as well. The ideal situation that you want to do here is to time your spin dash so that you'll cross over this vertex and then start charging it here, because when you let the spin dash go without a vertex change, you'll conserve a lot more of that speed. I'll show like 2 direct corresponding examples here. So let's just start from here. Get rid of the enemy. So start this again. Camera was a little odd there. So letting it go early, you can see that my speed completely peters out there. And I've got basically no speed once I reach the leftwards turn there. Whereas if I time it so that I'm going to do that spin dash when I'm on the staircase... Whoops. I haven't played in a few days. Go easy on me, because I've been sick. Then that's what keeps the speed around that corner. So try to strive for that whenever possible. That is quite an important detail. It looks very minor, but it does actually factor into how that section goes. Just something to bear in mind.
I'm doing this is gonna be a no reset, so
yeah, so what happened there was just charging a spin dash over the vertex is directly what caused that. So you came down here, you're starting to charge your spin dash here, and then it came out here, and then you crossed over the vertex in ball form, and that results in you, well, you became airborne as well for a bit, I think, and that just results in you getting kicked out of the ball form. So just try and avoid that. Again, if I'm trying to do spin dashes here, I try to have them just come out entirely on the staircases, if possible.
So I'm doing at least one more run. Well, it's gonna be a no reset once I get...
So this looks like a CE skip. Very long pause buffer, but you know, if it helps you get it, it helps you get it. A little bad cam, but landing on the rail fine. So your speed here did look very suspicious. There's no input cam here, so I can't see like exactly what you're doing, but I can maybe look at Sonic to see what's happening here, because you're fairly straight on the rail here, but then, yeah, Sonic starts leaning over to the right very aggressively here, so maybe just your Oh yeah, he's like way over on the right here. So something about your directional input here just either wasn't fast enough or wasn't aggressive enough, which is why you lost all your speed here. And then this is a much more difficult position to be in for this rail switch if you haven't got much speed, because yeah, because this very easily happens. I knew that was going to happen, because if you don't have very much speed, then it becomes a lot less forgiving. If you've got a high amount of speed, then you can basically afford to jump off the rail early. As an aside, a visual cue that I like to use for the rail switch is, let's just go back frame by frame again. Like if you want to try and use a visual cue, but again, this is assuming with high speed. You can see there's these posters on the wall. So you've got this first red poster, the second yellow poster, and then the third red poster that you pass. I typically try and just jump in homing attack after I've passed the third poster. And that is the spot that you did it, but because you barely had any speed, you just didn't have the distance to make it to the other rail. Like you'll see, you've passed this third poster, and then you jump. So this is about where I would normally do it, but because, like I said, because your speed wasn't very high, you just didn't make the distance here. Sadly. Otherwise, that would have been a perfectly fine change. And then, yeah, playing the rest of this section, I don't have any suggestions on how to deal with this, because this is just awful if you're not on the rails by this point. But you actually made a fairly decent job of getting down without the rails there. That's probably cleaner than I would normally manage without that.
If you look at the splits, you can see clearly it was not a good run. Also, what am I doing?
I think you just left this first hill to chance because you did roll over the hill. I don't really like this, but I don't know if it's just that you misgauged the timing on when to let go of the spin dash. A lot of people do like go down the right side like this because it is potentially faster, partly because you avoid this thing here. I actually let this thing hit me to intentionally unroll me from the spin dash. This is just an option. I'm not like saying this is what you should do. I'm just explaining this is what I do for this section, and people see I pretty often get very consistent truck sections. I'm typically around this area, and then I will run into this thing. It unrolls me from the spin dash, and as soon as I can see that I've been unrolled from the spin dash, that provides the correct timing for me to then start charging the next spin dash, at which point it comes out around here, and Sonic's momentum pushes him into this speed pad, which the speed pad then pushes you over this next hill, and as long as you're in the right position, you are rightwards enough to not actually be on this ramp. So that's actually a very consistent way to get over this first hill. Like, you did go over this first hill, but because you just rolled over it, this, I think, was basically, I mean, it's not RNG, but this was basically luck that this worked.
Also, what am I doing with this truck section right now?
So that one was fine. The only thing wrong here, quote-unquote wrong, was, like, the timing here. Because you can see you unroll fairly early, and then you start charging the spin dash, I think, before you've even, like, flattened out, and you have to hold this for quite a long time before it's safe to unroll from it. So, like, the shorter time you can hold on to each spin dash charge, obviously the less time you'll be losing on each hill. So, snapping to the left and using the pads there, if you've got the right speed, like, that does work. I don't particularly favour that method, but the method that I use, a lot of people also don't like that, so if that works for you, I'm definitely not going to object to that, and this should give you a good setup for the... Oh, so you're actually manually going to the spot that I use, which is different. Whenever I see people using that method for doing the turn there, they just stay in position and let that setup carry them through into this next double turn. But this is pretty much what I do to take that turn, so I'm not going to argue with that. What I am interested to see is whether you use the same setup that I use for the next hill. Pretty much the same, yeah. I think you were waiting for the ramp to appear, like, until you could see the ramp, and then you unrolled and did another spin dash. That's exactly what I do. So if you were waiting for that, yeah, that's the same cue that I use, so that's pretty nice there. And then just making sure you're on the very left there to get the goal ring immediately. Nice. 130 is, you know, fairly respectable. Considering how slow the rail section was, that is actually quite a nice city escape, I've got to say. Like, getting a 130 whilst losing as much time as that on the rail section is not very easy.
Was that a good one?
So I'm seeing a restart abuse on Bigfoot, so as long as Omachow doesn't break... That's why I don't like doing this. Just putting that out there. This is why I don't like restart abuse on Bigfoot. Because Omachow is as unhelpful as possible, and now this basically isn't saving time. So, I mean, if you can get a way for that to work consistently, because look at the time you're ending up with here, like 23.89. So without the restart abuse, this would have been like a low 23 comparatively. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to use that, make sure you have a consistent method to get Omoch out and not break the box. Otherwise, this is not worth doing. You're actually losing time by doing this if Omoch gets in the way of the boxes. Just be aware of that.
So yeah, last run I had a terrible city escape, and then I had a
Okay, so Wild Canyon.
second Bigfoot, but I kept running anyways.
So not seeing anything to begin with.
Is super easy to
Pause buffering, I think, for free piece checks. Since this is like IGT, I definitely don't disagree with that. I think it's something that more people should actually be doing, and people kind of just view pausing to do stuff like this as kind of like against the spirit of the game, but that doesn't really mean anything, honestly. If the game's IGT, the game's IGT, and the only rule for pause buffering like that is that you don't leave the game paused for an extensive period of time, which basically means don't use it to go AFK. This is a really bad piece set, so I can't really fault the time that's happening here too much. One thing you can maybe consider, though, to get this piece a little faster, is like you went here and you just wait for this guy to come down. You don't actually need to wait for this guy. You can just bring the fight to him, basically. Let me bring SA2 back up. Because what you can do is get a slope jump that's right before that spot. Also, nice beginning room. So I'm just going to pretend that I have the piece on this guy, and I'm just going to fly there and get a slope jump right into him. So you can just start from somewhere like here with basically no speed, but the important thing is that you land here and do a slope jump, so that you can hopefully jump into that guy really early. It's just a small optimization that you can do there. Like, you could have gotten that piece, like, half a second to a second faster. Overall, though, like, 38, like, yes, it's not a good time, but the piece set was about as bad as you could have asked for, so, yeah, it's whatever.
Sometimes you just get set.
These things just happen sometimes. Alright, Eggman.
Exactly
I know the start of that fight went correctly, so I don't really have to comment on that.
it was
I'm not really a fan of just face tanking the hit like that,
incredibly abundant.
but, you know, you got a 12, so it can work. I just prefer to sidestep it, but that can create problems of its own, so Eggman 1 is just Eggman 1, and if that works, then it works. That's the only important thing, really. It's really a throwaway split in the run. So Prison Lane, I'm expecting to have more to talk about. I think your movement generally looks a little wobbly. Like, if I go back, this corridor should really just be a straight line. Like, you should be running in a straight line, but you are wobbling around quite a bit here, and I don't know if that was to try and make sure that you got the enemy, but like, if I bring SA2 up again, you should be able to very consistently just get away with just running in a single straight line. If you get the enemy. Like, you can do that without too much difficulty, and as long as you're facing towards the enemy, you'll definitely get him every time. I just bring this up because if that's a habit that occurs everywhere, then that is something to work on in general, because that will, you know, save tiny bits of time, like, everywhere in the run. And there are certain spots in the run where if the camera's turning enough and you're wobbling around by small increments like that, you're probably going to lose your speed without actually turning very much, but that can cause that to happen. So just something to note. Nice jump there. I like that. Your jump here was quite high. So I'm not entirely sure if this was necessary, but like you jumped to slow down to reach the door, which that in itself I don't really disagree with, but this jump is like very high, and I'm not really sure I agree with that. If I pull up Prison Lane and keep playing, hopefully I'll be able to like get this without entirely fucking up. I'm not going to do that jump though. Like, yeah, you can get around that without using a particularly high jump, so I don't think it's necessary. So maybe that's just something to pay attention to as well, not spending as much time in the air with tails as you are if you don't strictly need to, because that also tends to manifest itself as a general habit. Like, rather than people doing it because it's necessary to execute it as a strat in specific places, they just do it because that's what they do. So that's something to pay attention to. Try and use short hops whenever you can.
Because Draco is much better at running this game than I am.
That is not true.
I do hope that one day I'll be able to...
Like, this movement is generally quite a bit straighter, so yeah, this is looking quite a bit better already. I like to be against the left wall there, but I don't know if it's actually faster. It's just, again, what I like to do. That's one of my habits. For all I know, that could be slower, actually. I don't think it is, though. If anything, it looks like the wall gives you a little bit of a boost. So, I mean, you'll know what happened here, but pretty much just... You can't really go wrong with just slowing down a little bit here just to make sure this gate's not going to deny you. You can use a wall boost here as well, but it's, like, quite finicky, and I don't get it very often, very easily. So the alternative is just to slow down a little more than you did here to make sure that you don't bonk against that gate, because those gate bonks can really hurt. Honestly, getting that gate bonk and still getting a 37 there is really not bad, though.
I like RNG. I like seeing my skill improve, and I know SAT...
Yeah, a 51 check with that gate bonk is actually quite good.
The more you can negate the damage.
Getting the pivot turn there I actually quite like as well. So there's a lot of good here as well. Like, as well as just the things that I'm pointing out to improve, there is actually a lot of good here.
But that might be an opinion I share with myself.
Okay.
And no one else.
Okay, for this specific corner, I do recommend hopping around this corner. Like, I say that you want to be on the ground as much as possible, unless you need to be in the air for a strat. This is one of the spots where you want to be in the air to execute a strat. So I'm just going to play through again, catch up with where you were on the stage. You'll notice here as well, I'm trying to minimize the amount of time I'm in the air. I'm only gaining as much height as is necessary to make it up ledges. So again, just slow down a little more than you think you need here, if it causes you to. Oh, I actually didn't pay attention to how you got on the elevator, so I'm going to take a little rewind here to look at that, because that is something that I've commented on in previous analyses. I completely overlooked this, sorry.
Really? What a shame. I wish I wouldn't.
Okay, that was actually pretty good still, because basically what I'm looking at is how quickly you got on and triggered the elevator. A lot of people like do a hop that's slightly higher than necessary, and you get more frames of airtime. Like, you land on the elevator like here, but I see a lot of people land basically in the middle of the elevator and it just loses some frames. But you landed pretty quickly here, so nice. Yeah, alright, this'll do. So back to the game. So I notice you're saying about wanting to shoot the enemy there. Shooting the enemies in this spot is really not necessary. Almost there. So the boxes are there, that's fine. I just need to know the boxes are there so I can do 2 short hops. So here, like the only thing that went wrong, like I said, you just did the turn here completely on the ground. I use pretty much the same timing to go as I think you were using, which is waiting until you can see the enemy up here. But then I just try and do a short corner hop. Like that. And you should hopefully have a lot of speed as you then progress there. As long as you don't hit the railing that's on the right hand side of you.
Opinion I share with myself and no one else.
Yeah, because you're already basically starting from a nearly stationary position, so you're not really losing speed from doing the hop there. Like, normally jumping, if you're already at max speed, that slows you down, but since you're already accelerating at that point, it doesn't really lose time at all to do that. And if it means you get a fast turn, then if anything, it actually saves a bit of time. So I think you were going for the early lock there and then just didn't get it. That is something that typically happens. Maybe just look at... Okay, I've got multiple things to talk about here, so I'll just take things one at a time. So these jumps were mostly pretty good. Like, there's a lot of short hopping that I'm seeing here. Well, at least not full hopping. That was a full hop, but that doesn't matter since you're waiting for the gate. But then this jump here is more of a short hop, since... Oh, wow, you actually got some weird collision there. But that definitely wasn't a full hop. And then I don't think this next one was either. But then it's just a matter of waiting for the right time to start actually moving here after releasing all these lock-ons, because like you did recognize here that this gate wasn't open and you did need to like fully stop to wait for it. So if you can find a happy medium of waiting a certain amount of time before you even start going, you'll obviously get faster progress through that gate there if you can have full speed towards it as it's opening. But the big thing that I noticed here was the jump that you did to get this enemy, which this is an example of what I mean about just using full hops when it's not necessary and when it's clearly just like habitual play. Because you jump at pretty much the same time as I recommend everyone else to do. Like, I always say that if you want to get this enemy, then you can jump, like, around the second floor shadow. But you did, like, a full hop here to make sure that you get the enemy, and it's really not necessary here. So let's see a counterpoint example. See that? I did a short hop and I still got it just fine from the same position. So that's something that you can do very easily. As long as you use that cue, that visual cue of where to go from the second shadow on the floor, you can get that enemy with a short hop. So there's no need to do a full jump there.
Oh, I really screwed up the back half of this, didn't I?
Oh, that was just... yeah.
No,
Second gate hop can be second gate hop, so I'm not going to lambast this too much. But if you struggle with the gate hops at all, then
Imagine still saving time with
practice
that,
them. Preferably without the hover, because that will teach you a lot of bad habits. But overall, like I said, there was like some things that can definitely be improved in that prison lane, but overall that was actually pretty nice. The first half of it was actually very good overall, like getting the 51 check with what looked like a major mistake. That's actually quite good. Okay, I can't really speak too much on what happened here because I don't do underloop myself. It looks like you just hit... I mean, I'm going to slow this down. Yeah, you just didn't get under the actual structure then, I guess. Again, I can't really tell you how to fix this because I don't do this strat myself. I mean, if you know what went wrong, then that's the next best thing. At least you can then work on trying not to let that happen very often. That's the important thing, really. So, from what I know about how this specific attack works on this beetle, I think the method that you're using here is not very safe. Because typically what you'll see happen to a lot of people is that they attack the beetle and then they just don't have the height to make it across. Like, they'll attack here, and even though they homing attack right after, they just don't make it across here. And I think that being on the left of the beetle is one of the primary reasons why this happens. Like, I'm gonna get Metal Harbor up myself and give it a little quick attempt. So in other words, I think taking a straighter path to the beetle is actually safer here. Again, I'm not going to do underloop here, I'm just going to do my method. Okay, that was okay, but then I'm going very slow here. It's whatever, it's not important. Nice bounce. That actually was the bounce bracelet coming out. Thank you for getting out of the way. So I really just try and hit the enemy like that. I should have gone the checkpoint from before, actually, fuck. I'll hit the checkpoint and then do this a couple of times and see if I get a different result with different positioning. So this time I'm going to go like more to the left like you did. Okay, so I'm still making it, so I'm not entirely sure if this is all of what dictates it, but this is what I've heard some people talking about. Okay, let's just be casual, take the springs here. Let's try this one more time. I mean, it looks like it's still working, but either way, if the straighter path still works, then it's obviously what you should be going for, because it is a more direct path. So, again, just something to consider, I suppose. Is that? Yeah, that is cropped to the right place. I was just checking on my layout. Either way, we continue. So nice spot for getting the light dash trail. You can obviously go further into the water, but then that's progressively more dangerous, so I don't recommend that myself. If you want to super optimize the stage, it's kind of what you have to do. You can, I think, stand to try and land a little sooner on here, because like when you go around the loop here, like, yeah, this is just a thing that you do, but if you can actually like land on the other side around here, I think it's actually possible to get a small loop speed boost. We'll see if I can finagle that as well here. Like, it looks to me like I'm getting a little bit of a boost there. I'm not sure if you agree. It's can have a little bit of inherent risk if you are not really paying attention to where you're going to land, because the side of this can just drag you down and cause you to die. But if you've got enough spare height to just make it safely around, I think it's slightly better to land earlier. So that's maybe something to consider applying. Okay, okay, pulley skip. Made it, nice. Yeah, getting boxed there happens, but again, I don't do pulley skip, so I can't say like exactly, oh, you should have done that differently. Okay, one thing that I agree with here, one thing I very much disagree with here. The thing that I agree with was the way that you just maintained one spin dash down this slope, and it was nicely angled. So you just let this go. Oh, that's the frame advance key. Just let this go, you go around pretty smoothly, which is nice, and you unroll so that you are charging the next spin dash and you've got storage to get under here. All of that is really nice, but then the only thing I disagree with here is how you did the homing attacks here. I've talked at length before about how I think homing attacking these enemies is just the wrong thing to do. Please get under, Sonny. Right, well, so here we are. I'm going to get the checkpoint here as well and then backtrack. Because the important thing to remember here is that when you reach this area, I can actually go back to your gameplay feed to show this quickly.
I'm good if my...
So we're at this spot here. And so obviously your pace at this point is dictated by the rocket platform here. It doesn't matter how fast you reach the rocket platform until it's actually out and ready to grab. And at this point, you can see it's open and the rocket is starting to come out. So at this point that you're at, you can't go any faster at this point because the rocket's coming out and you're just waiting for it to be ready. And you reach it with enough time to spare. Basically, like you're reaching it. You get to it like pretty much as it's ready, but you have a choice of the different methods that you want to use here as you're reaching the rocket, and there are much more risks that are inherent with taking the beetles. It's very possible to get something like that, and I did that on purpose, so that can definitely happen by accident as well. It's also very possible to get sent completely backwards. Like that. These are all things that can happen without you like realizing they're about to happen, and they can completely kill your pace on the stage. The safer alternative is just to do a spin dash jump and just clear the gap normally. If you think you're going to start from too far back, like, because from the way that you got your spin dash, it was like around here, so I can see you thinking, oh, maybe I've not got the distance for this. You can try to add a few frames between your spin dash release and your jump, so that you actually just move like this and then jump at the edge of the platform. That is something that you can do to augment the spin dash jump distance, like from here. Like when you do a spin dash jump, you don't necessarily need to go from B to A in as few frames as possible. You can extend it if it's better to do so, and in this position it is better to do it, because like from this position, if you do it from here, just a spin dash jump from here, then yes, you probably are really struggling to get the distance to make that. But by just lengthening it a little bit, it's a lot safer. And the beetles, like I've demonstrated, there's multiple ways that they can really screw you over there. So it's much safer to just not bother with the beetles. It's not faster because you're waiting for the rocket platform, and there's just a lot less risk in it. Yeah, like, so you started from fair back there and then just went for the beetles because it was easier to make the distance. So, in other words, the safer play there would have been to just release the spin dash, wait a little bit before you jump, and then just traverse the platforms normally, is what I would recommend. You'll probably lose less runs doing that. You won't lose many runs in the first place to the beetles, but losing any runs is too many in a stupid spot like that, especially when it's just before the checkpoint.
Clean. I could have done a little less setup.
Oh yeah, okay. I didn't like some of what I saw here. So, the first thing that I noticed here is that I think you just had too much speed when you came off here. Like, you charged like a full spin dash, and you get tons of distance here, and you're basically, like, yeah, you're nearly halfway across before you even touch down on the ground to even get ready to use your next spin dash. which is a bit of a problem. And I think this threw you out of position and gave you a bit of an unfamiliar camera here, because it's quite clear here that you just went up straight past the rocket platform. And yeah, the camera here is just awful. I can't really argue with what happened here, but I can't believe you didn't grab it here either. Like, look how fucking close Sonic is. This is stupid. This part of the stage is just really dumb. So I guess what I try to do instead, this is like weird to demonstrate, but I always try to land like I'm about to land in the water. Something like that. And then I can just hopefully... Nice, the music didn't stop. Yeah, okay. And then you can hopefully end up in a nice position to do the platform skip like that. Because it's just all about when you are ready to actually start prepping your next spin dash chain. Which obviously you can't do it until you're grounded. So that one was like a little more convenient, but again it's still a little touch and go. And oh, at this point you're actually just bailing out and doing it normally. Wow. So this is like real desperation. Oh, well, okay. I can actually do a further demonstration. I'll keep game feed playing while my own game is... Wow. Basically, I'm just waiting for Sonic to die here on my game so I can go back to the rocket platform.
4 and 5 chances. Yeah,
So let's pause this here and go to my game. So if you absolutely must take the quote-unquote casual route, the one thing that you really need to be aware of with the speed pads is that the thing that happened to you, like on the speed pad here, was a result of being on the left side of the speed pad when you hit it. It just shoves you into there. So you want to be either on the right side or in the middle. And it's very easy to end up on the left side when you crest over these hills and you get some airtime. So just, if for some reason you're going to do this strat again, just bear in mind, do not end up on the left side of the speed pads, otherwise you will struggle even with this method. Like, this is even a bit of a casual killer. So this one, you just run into it normally. This will probably give you some airtime, so just try to not end up in this sort of position. And then just, you know, progress normally. It's silly to even bring this sort of thing up, but, you know, clearly in that instance you were forced into that position, and so it's worth knowing how to even do something like that. It's knowledge that's worth having.
One door.
Like, it doesn't hurt to have that knowledge.
No
so the TLDR of that, just don't end up on the left side of the speed pads.
Yeah. I forget, because I don't run statics, but I have watched is that RNG part. Because I know first you have Twinkle Park, but isn't that the second stage? No.
Oof, that was quite low, but it worked. That looked a little scary to me, but you got it, so nice. Will not say anything about it. Let's see, Shadow. Safe method? Yeah, safe method. The route? I'm not sure. Yeah, you didn't have enough speed to actually catch up with him here. Like, you're running with him. And then, as soon as his iframes ended, you just didn't have, like I say, enough speed to actually catch up with him, which is why this hit failed. And I think you were expecting the storage to hit by this point, so this is, I think, why the spin dash came out here, because you were just holding B for the storage. But then it took so long that the spin dash came out, is what I'm seeing. Either way, yeah, you can get the hit 2 like that. And, okay, decent hit 3. Something... I'm not gonna, like, play to Shadow, because I need... Hang on, I have a story scene for Shadow, don't I? I'm just seeing if I've got a story select scene for Shadow. Yes, I do. Okay, I can demonstrate this. This isn't too bad to play from. But we do have to watch this scene, so I'm going to prep Green Forest in your VOD. Okay, so I'm ready for Green Forest there. So even if you're just going regular on Shadow, one thing that I recommend for hits 2 and 3 is as soon as you get the storage hit on him, you just do a short hop and do a homing attack cancel away from him. Because normally Shadow will react to your actions by jumping and probably homing attacking towards him yourself, but if you do an action while he's recoiling from the damage you've caused him, he won't do that. And the biggest culprit of not being able to chain the attacks together like you had there, not being able to keep up with him, is that you just don't have enough like momentum going towards him. That is remedied by going further away from him with speed and then going back towards him like this. Please. Alright, so we get to demonstrate here. except I've got bad camera. Wow, this is a really bad situation. Let's get control of the fight again first. So if you do that, then you can easily get a lot of momentum to go back towards him like that. And you can see that as long as after your hit, your jump and homing attack cancel is really prompt, he won't react to it because he just doesn't have time to do an action because he's still in his iframes after that. I'm just going to wait until I can pause here on Green Forest because this cutscene is also not skippable. The homing attack cancel is purely just that you want to get on the ground faster, and it gives you more speed to get away from him as well. So it's really just to facilitate getting the next hit more easily, i.e. give you more speed to run towards him with. Okay, so back to the game.
Well as a few shop items, but there's really nothing in there yet, and I'll let you know when I get
So, perfectly regular start. Not gone for the light dash. I agree with that myself, and you got Vertex there, that will just happen sometimes. Vertex there as well, that also just happens. That was weird though. I want to have a look at what actually happened here. Did you intend to do this? Or were you actually trying to run up and get the vine? Because that looked quite odd to me. And I'm not actually sure what you were going for here. From what happened there, I don't think that's what you were going for, but I could have been wrong.
You could learn all of Tails in an hour. You think so?
So the only thing that I notice here is, oh, you did want to stay on the ground. Okay, interesting. I normally just go for the vine there. So the only thing here is that, yeah, Spin Dash chain is correct here, but you hold on to this Spin Dash for quite a long time. Like, as soon as I crest over this hill, I just unroll from the Spin Dash, and then just go towards the spring normally, because it's, like, very, very close to the Spin Dash that you unroll here, and so when you get the Spin Dash storage here, it's not going to come out for... Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay before the Spin Dash storage comes out there, so I'll just try and show my own example here. Like, I personally find that when you get over the hill is nice timing for unrolling from that Spin Dash. As long as your route towards the spring is good, then you shouldn't get the next Spin Dash before you hit the spring. So yeah, I do this here, so then this is the part that I'm specifically talking about. I'll leave it like that. I do it as early as possible, but then I get a really early Spin Dash chain there. So I am actually going off that with a little bit of feel. But it's just something to bear in mind that you can get a little more mileage out of the Spin Dash storage that you're doing there. I don't mind that though, that's a pretty nice first loop skip. Oh, going really slow here though. I think you just didn't charge your Spin Dash at all here. Yeah, you just should have held onto the Spin Dash charge for at least a few more frames, it looks like to me. Is all I can say about that. And it just gave you no speed.
What a tragedy.
I don't think that was top spring, but the vertexes can really get in the way here. Yeah, middle spring. The vertexes can just be vertexes there, though.
I'll read the rest of your name.
So I prefer to try and do this section by delaying when you do the Spin Dash charge here so that you can get it on here, so that you also get a slight slope jump. It just makes it a bit easier to get across and removes just some of the margin of error, in my opinion. Whoa, that's a nice spot. I'm not going to do that. No neutral release, but this is the next best vertex to be on, I think. And I like to go for this enemy just because it's what I do. So anyway, like I said, ideally you want to just try and have the Spin Dash come out here so that you have a bit of a slope jump there to go off. No, let me back over. Tried to do it, but it didn't work. Give this one more. It doesn't really help to start from the next checkpoint, because it's already beyond this point. I think that was middle spring. Oh no, it was still top spring. Nice. Yeah, just try and like get it like that so that you get a bit of a slope jump, which I think it makes it a bit easier to make it across there.
I'll read the rest of your name afterwards.
I'm not sure then if it's like faster either way, but it's just what I like to do there. because then yeah, because if you wait on the ground a bit, depending on whether you unroll from the spin dash immediately or not, you will lose some speed. Like, if you unroll from the spin dash immediately, you'll still be going pretty fast, but if you just let it roll and then time when to jump, as I showed at the end of Metal Harbor, that will cause you to lose quite a bit of speed, one from the vertex change and then two from going up the hill. So I'm not entirely sure. It'll like be frames either way, but it's worth paying attention to in my opinion. Also, let's look at how this... Okay, so this is a good setup for getting the good light dash up the tree, because if you get the neutral light dash here, as in if you just go straight through the light dash trail like this without any finagling, then this typically sets you up in a good spot if you're just holding straight up on the control stick here to hit like the very center of the spring, and this puts you in the right position to get the good light dash here, which is exactly what you got. So if you can consistently do that, then that's definitely not a bad game plan. That's definitely worth doing.
But I really appreciate the follow. Sorry that I can't read and play at the same time because I'm not a skilled streamer like most people.
Nice.
That's one thing you should know as you're following. I'm not a good streamer. Very low quality, very poor gameplay.
I don't... From what I see here, I don't think you know how to reset the camera here, and this is definitely worth knowing if you're going for this. Well, first of all, I can try and just get the neutral spin dash here to show what I was talking about here. Just show it's not a fluke. Yeah, neutral spin dash there will get you this light dash fairly easily. So I'll just get the checkpoint here for bungee skip. And for bungee skip, there is no reason to not reset the camera here, and that is done just by pressing the left camera trigger once the camera gets locked to force free cam mode. So you get over here, and I'm not using it, and then, you know, it takes a while for the camera to catch up and it gets caught on the inside of the loop. What you can instead do is, as soon as it gets stuck there, just tap the left camera trigger, and it will immediately follow you. So, tap, and there it goes. And you have a much clearer view of where you're going, so that can avoid some nasty accidents there.
Just thought I'd let you know what you're getting yourself into.
Like, you're going to invariably have some cases where, it's not that it's faster, it's that it's safer, because you're, like I say, you're invariably going to have some cases where, like, you think you're going in the right direction, but somehow you've ended up out of position, and if the camera reset occurs later, you don't really have time to make a correction. So, since it's the same time, you may as well just do it because it's safer, because it gives you more time to recover from a mistake if you've made it. And because you're waiting for the camera to catch up, you can't see whether you've made a positional mistake. And because of the invisible wall on the right-hand side, it's surprisingly easy to have made a mistake and not realize it.
Just thought I'd let you know.
So, this started like it looked pretty nice, but then I'm surprised that you actually got the speed for the loop speed here. I don't like how this yeah, I don't like how this re-entry looked here, because you homing attacked here, and this is really unsafe. Homing attacking before you get through the loop is very unsafe, because that actually gives you a decent chance to get launched out of the bottom of the loop and straight into the water. So I don't like this approach. The best way to try and take bungee skip here is to just try and get a very low angle if you can. Go straight like this, and wait until you're like passing through the loop, so that you are already through solid ground before you try for the loop speed, and that will prevent a lot of deaths happening there. I've died multiple times there from getting the loop speed, but it sends me straight down because I haven't gotten through the solid part of the loop yet. So that is a legitimate risk.
Alright, this won't be a terrible green forest. Actually,
And again, a very slight optimization you can do at the end here. There's a couple of things you can do. Number one, by waiting a little longer before you jump here, like you'll see here, you jump and you get a little too much height here, and it causes you to pass like half this platform before you get grounded again. So you're spending some more time in the air, and because you land on the ground sooner, if you want to do a spin dash chain, it's harder to do, and if you can do the spin dash chain here, it's slightly faster. I'll try and demonstrate here. This is going to be awkward with the bounce bracelet though, because my instinct is to basically hold B before I hit the ground, but that's not safe to do with the bounce bracelet, but I'll try anyway. This isn't trivial, but it's also not terribly complex. Yeah, I got the bounce bracelet there. But the idea is that I'm trying to land here and then spin dash chain towards the spring. I'll try it one more time. Ah, I got the... That's the worst thing that can happen there if your angle is slightly wrong and you clip the ledge there with skewed gravity. I'm sure if that's happened to you before, that's just like, there's basically no recovering from that. It's terrible. And okay, if you clip back through the floor, that is the thing that can happen, that you can just land on the hello. You can just land on the loop before you actually hold an attack there. Messed it up again. You can see what I'm trying to go for though, like with a perfect approach then you basically get no airtime there and you can chain a spin dash there. I'm messing it up because I've got the bounce bracelet here. This will be a lot easier to do if I didn't have the bounce bracelet because I'm having to gauge when to do the B input, which is really getting in the way. But you can see the idea there.
Actually, it'll be relatively decent. 38, yeah.
Either way though, 138. Still fairly respectable. There weren't like any... Honestly, there weren't any like big mistakes there. It was just the biggest time losses were stuff like vertexes, which you don't as a player have full control over. And to like get multiple things like that happening and still come out with the 138, still pretty good.
Seconds and the ice cap key skip is like 20 seconds. That's a lot of time.
Okay, so about to fall off piece 1.
About to fall off, sad-eyed pumpkin.
This is a good
Please.
first piece. God. Pumpkin triangle, this is a good second piece.
Pumpkin triangle.
Just camera getting in the way of finding the rocket there, but it happens. Okay, so if you're going to dig for this piece, then one thing that's definitely worth doing is just getting out of the ground as fast as possible. Like, because Pumpkin Hill is so non-linear, I can just do this immediately, but as soon as you get out of the ground there, you more or less just want to be mashing A to get out as quick as you can. Like this. So let's just assume I'm going towards Pumpkin Triangle here. Just do that to get the next hint a bit faster. It's a little faster than waiting for Knuckles to land manually. And you can more or less just mash A to achieve that.
Please be this one for the God tier RNG.
Oh, nice. I actually didn't think you had that piece there, but then you were just like very, very slightly outside the range. That's a gold. Nice. Yeah, that RNG was very good.
Let's go. Let's go.
I'll movement test this set to see if... Okay, yeah, so the only thing that I saw like really wrong with the movement there was grabbing the rocket at the top of Church, and then the exit after grabbing the second piece. So I'm going to pretend that I've got that set and see if I like come out with basically worse than a 33, or better than a 33. It's not going to be exactly the same because I already have the shovel claws, but we'll see what happens with it. We'll just pretend that I'm getting the upgrade and getting the hint here. So, dun-dun-dun-dun. Let's just assume that I got the piece there because that was a mistake from me. 30. So like, give or take, there's probably like 2 seconds of improvement available from like in that situation, getting the rocket a little more promptly and then getting the next hint a little faster as you get out the ground. But you know, it's pocket change. But you know, just in Knuckles stages, how the little things can really add up over time. Overall, though, you're like, yeah, nothing to complain about the RNG. That was really good. 33. I wish I had a 33 in my PB. Okay, MS.
But it wasn't, so, you know, that's just a hypothetical bad situation.
So the route here at the start looks just a little finicky. I think you're actually losing a little bit of speed from your very starting angle, as strange as that is to say, but I think a lot of people are using too much right input and not enough down input here. Like, I'll show what I mean. I'm going to hold like hard right here when I enter the stage. And I don't know, like you turn around and it looks fine, but I think you generally conserve more speed if you add some more down to that. Like, that just seems to me that you take a straighter angle and there's less wiggling, personally. And then, also then when you reach, well, at this point, I think you took like a straight path here and then curved around.
So, you know, that's just a hypothetical bad situation.
Rather than taking a straighter path here. I just try to take the straightest path possible here. Let's restart the stage and just try and take a really straight path here. So I'm already aiming where I want to go, and then I just take the tightest line I can. This is what I try to do like every time on Mission Street. And if you hit that car there, like it happens a lot, but it loses very, very little time. Less time, I think, than not taking a straight path there, in my opinion. I may be wrong. I don't actually have any statistics to really back that up, but that's how it comes off to me. As long as you're firing a lot of shots, like you can see, you should be getting the cars out of the way as quick as possible, unless you mean like this car here, which, yes, it avoids a lot of your fire, but I don't think it like loses a lot of time, if any. And like I say, I don't have statistics to back this up. So if you can show that like using the route that you use is faster, then yeah, by all means, keep doing that. And this is definitely the correct route for here. Yep. Using the left side here is faster. I can't do it very well, so I typically don't do it.
A billion times better than last time.
This can maybe actually just be used as an example, though, because, okay, you went left side here, which is flat out faster for making it to the upgrade, and you're getting a 22-24 here. So your approach to the upgrade is flat out faster than what I do, but I don't think I'll end much slower than it with the route that I use here, and going the right side. So I even got the cop car, so I got best of both worlds here. So about the same time, which is a little weird, but that was like with the right side. So that is with the approach, like my approach towards the upgrade was just flat out slower because I was using a longer path, and I'm ending up with like around the same time. So if you can take the shorter path and get the cop car out of the way at the same time, it's like definitely a bit faster. And then assuming that I'd hit that cop car, that's probably like a 10th or two, so it's probably still like about equal. So at that point, I guess it's pretty much preference what you want to do with it. So yeah, waiting, that looks about right for the IGT abuse here.
I'm not going to read chat during this level because...
that time variance will probably be due to what I said about the very, very start of the stage, where the camera just pans around. The inputs that you're using there, they will have an influence on how much speed you conserve there. I have no complaints about how this section went here. I would like to see less people jumping over this car, though, because at this point, since the only thing that matters here is making zero cycle, jumping over the car, I do think that is extraneous and unnecessary, and I think it's actually slower to do that, rather than just face tanking into the car. Let's just progress on my end. Speaking of extraneous movement, don't do this. Do that if you can, though, the 360 no-scope, because it looks cool. So, checkpoint. So what I prefer to do here is to just try and shoot the car out the way as I'm approaching it. Because even if you don't get it, like, I'm not entirely sure if I got it there, but I'll just die again, and this time I'm just not going to shoot it as I approach it. Running into it still basically does nothing. Basically doesn't lose you any time, and like, since you're trying to meet the cycle, it basically makes no difference. Like, I don't think there's really a perceptible difference in your speed there. If it loses frames, it's like a few frames at most. But I think you actually lose less time from taking the jump there. And having more speed as you approach this cage hop is the most important thing, so I would prioritize that myself. Nice Rush 40 music. Yeah, if you're comfortable with what you do, then by all means continue using it, because comfort, when you, like I say, when you're trying to meet the cycle, comfort is the most important thing here. That's nice. There's not many people who actually do this section correctly, but that is exactly how I do that, so nice. I mean, that pause hover was definitely not necessary, but again, if that's habit and if it works for you, then I guess go for it. I just think every single pause hover is inherently slightly risky, since if you mix up the order of inputs, you can just drop the hover fully.
Oh no, I shot the guy.
Okay.
Punished for it, though.
Okay, yeah, you know not to do that. Good. Don't shoot the guy. Just don't do that. I've talked at length about why that's the wrong thing to do.
Whenever I do Wild Canyon Drive, all always says that I'm doing an Anvar right.
I think you actually did this correctly as well. Like, I think you've been paying attention to how I've been saying to do this stage, from what I'm seeing. Because very few people do this, where, like, you get through the first barrier here. Man, please? Okay. And then there's a little bit of upwards movement here. Like, you're very clearly tilting upwards a little here to gain a little bit of distance from the wall. And then you just angle back towards the wall, which is actually the correct way to do this section. This gets you through this next set of boxes very easily without any collision. So it's actually... This is actually the first analysis I've done where I've actually seen someone do the correct pathing here, which is nice.
Because of all my pauses.
And then the cars are just fucking cars, which sometimes don't get destroyed.
Every time she's in chat, she'll say it.
Really? Wow. Yeah, that's Mission Street doesn't seem like a very high priority stage for you to practice then. Yeah, 203 is like really, really respectable. The things that I had to say on that stage were very minimal at most.
Alright, I can save
So
some time
AM.
here, especially if I get a good set. I'm not seeing any fans, didn't see any eyes, didn't see any...
Okay, so I am having to repeat here the same thing that I've said, I think, in every analysis so far. That the way that you start Aquatic Mine in a story mode run is not the same as the way that you start in practice. When you go into Aquatic Mine in practice mode, I'm mashing the A button here. And I don't have control of Knuckles until I'm on the floor. Which, like, that'll happen every time. When you restart like this, you don't have control of Knuckles until you land. However, if you access Aquatic Mine from story mode, and I think there is a scene for this. Yeah. You do have control of Knuckles from the first frame. So as soon as you gain control of Knuckles, you can just do an A input to glide, a B input to drill dive, another one to punch, and just start from there. So it looks like this. You can see that you have control of Knuckles immediately, like I say, so that you basically want to do that all the time. Because even if you have no ping here on the radar, rather than going backwards to get the hit monitor, I think it's generally seen as better nowadays to move forward, and if you don't have a ping by this point, like when you're near the pulleys, then you take the restart, because it means you've got one of the worst first pieces. Like, this is either going to be a ghost room piece on the far side, or down below, or underwater brick room. In an oven. So this is actually runnable, but this is quite rare to see. Like, this is the in an oven that's down here, and this is runnable, but yeah, it could have just as easily been one of the other really, really crappy pieces.
Seeing any fans, didn't see any eyes, didn't see any...
So yeah, so clearly, like everyone else, you've done Aquatic Mine practice through stage select, because why wouldn't you? And in stage select, you don't have control of Knuckles until you hit the floor, so that's just become habit, because yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. It's just worth being aware that you can do the fast start like that in story mode.
Yep, no fans.
Which also means, I think, that if you then restart from within story mode, it basically makes it the same as doing stage select practice, so I think you only have the opportunity to do that on the first entry into the stage. Yeah, this RNG is good, you weren't kidding. I do disagree with the movement choice here in Narrow Path. So, like, you clearly gliding here to avoid getting an oops on the corner here, that's really not necessary. The best policy to use here is to... Let's just get the water level. Please, let me through. So the best thing to do here is to just land here and to punch off the ledge. I'm just going to get this cart out of the way. But you can just punch off the ledge. And so you are going slightly faster from being grounded and using a punch excel, and you don't have the airtime, and everything's just better about it. Like, clearly you're just trying to avoid this happening, where if you run onto the edge, then you just get the oops. But as long as you use a punch excel off it, then that won't happen, and it puts you in a really good position for the piece that you had as well. For the rest of general narrow path movement, it's really useful as well, because like you punch here, and then you land here, and you do another punch to get up this slope really quickly. So it avoids all of the things that I see from a lot of runners, where like they're here with barely any speed, and then they're just doing like this to get up this slope, and it's like there's no need to do that. Just be here. Do a punch off here, and then another punch up the slope, and you're moving really quickly through narrow path. That is what you should always be doing for narrow path movement. It's just do a punch at the edge. Like, I'll go into other stages, because like I'll go into Meteor Herd. It's applicable in virtually every knuckle stage. And it's what you should always be doing if you've got the option to do it, because it's slightly faster than jumping and gliding off a ledge. So like, let's say here, I want to go down in this direction. A lot of people just like do this and carry on like that, but instead there's no reason that you can't just punch off the edge like that. And that works for every ledge in the game. That's just part of Knuckles' mechanics. If you're messing it up, then you're probably punching from too far away from the edge. Like, I'll try it again here. Yeah, so if the punch animation is ended, then you're probably like not getting it. Like that. So just try and punch at the edge of the ledge like that, if you can. That's my recommendation. But I definitely recommend trying to do that in as many places as possible. Try and make this like one of your main movement habits, to punch off the edges of platforms rather than jump and glide off them. Because especially in the narrow path there, it just makes the movement for the entire narrow path so much more fluid.
RNG decided to be...
But, I mean, a 24 aquatic mine, aside from that little thing, there's absolutely no reason to complain about anything that I saw there. Alright, so Route 101. This, in analyses, has typically been a stage that I wouldn't expect to have a lot to talk about, but it has actually happened. That I have had things to bring up in this stage. So far, this looks not bad though, but now this is really where it's gonna be a thing with the drifting starting to happen. You're trying to take tight paths, which is nice, and your general driving, it's not too wide, which is nice. Like, this is better than quite a bit of the rest of the driving that I've seen in the analyses so far.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, this is generally quite clean. That turn was just I think that was badly judged. Because you can definitely get away with starting this turn a lot later and taking a wider turn here, because you don't really want to be on the inside of this turn. What you want is to be on the inside of this turn after you've gotten past the car. So ideally, when you reach this point with like driving that's a little bit tighter, the car can be like around here, and then you can just sweep just around it like that. Since I haven't played Route 101 in this session, I'm going to have the speed boost, so if I play Route 101 decently, I should hopefully be able to demonstrate that here. There it is. Like, I only get the one attempt at this because of the intro boost there. I'd have to reboot the game to get that back. So hopefully I don't flub this. I take a slightly wider path there just so I can get an inside turn there, but I don't think it's like necessary. And then that turn actually wasn't very good. And then that turn was just a flat out mistake. But it's fine. Like, this isn't the relevant thing yet. So the relevant point is instead here, where I'm going to not worry about taking this turn too sharply, and it's instead this turn that I'm worried about. So, yeah, so because I was a little behind where I would normally be, like I can be like a couple of tenths of a second ahead of where I was there, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in Route 101 it does actually change the car positions a surprising amount, and I could have taken that last turn quite a bit tighter without the car getting in the way. But it just demonstrates the point that for that first part of that wide turn, you don't need to worry about being on the inside of it, because it's the end part that's the important part. I think it's much better to have a tight exit on the end of the turn, rather than take a wide exit. So hitting that car, on the, as long as you're on the slope, I don't think that should matter. It looks like you're still going pretty fast here.
But I do need to be sort
this looks like, to me, I think this looks like a mid 120 lap 2.
I hope that was
like 120.5.
It was perfectly enough.
120.3, okay, slightly better than I thought. About the same ballpark though, yeah. This is like a pretty average lap 2 time. Like, lap what? So basically, like, what you did in lap 2 did matter, because you typically won't get much better than a 38 lap 1. So like the 30 at 18, I'd be pretty happy with this as a lap 1. But the lap 2, from there being a 120.36, this is basically like a second of time loss over what you can get with the lap 1 time, so you lost like a second somewhere in that lap 2, and I think a lot of that came from the turn that I was specifically talking about, and then that affected the way that you could take a couple of the other parts later in the lap. Like, the thing about Route 101 is all the different parts influence each other, because the stage is continuous with the cars moving, so it's just weird. But you did lose like a second in this lap 2, basically. Coping with what you've got for this lap 3 though fairly well. Yeah, I don't really like, if I'm on this sort of pace with a low 120, I don't like how the yellow taxi always gets in the way there, so what I typically do is actually intentionally run into the yellow taxi and then boost, just so that it won't slow me down. Like, I'll run into it and then just boost straight after to get right back up to max speed. That ring trail is not necessary to get, the final ring trail, because it's not going to give you the boost. So you may as well just go for the balloon, which will give you the boost, and you can take a slightly tighter line towards it. Otherwise, though, that's just a Route 101, yeah. 215, mid 215 is a respectable Route 101. Like I say, it's just like a second and a half lost throughout there.
Like in hidden base, I should be able to save time here.
Like, that last ring trail, it quote-unquote can give you the boost, but it very, very much depends on your ring route, and I don't think it's very common. It's much, much more common to get the boost from the balloon in the last pit stop. So the first thing that I've noticed in this hidden base is that, like, at the start, this looked like pretty nice. The way you touched down here was really nice, but then you turn very aggressively to the right here. And this actually loses time in a couple of different ways. First of all, I mean, obviously you're going to slow down from the direction changes, like when you turn to the left here, you lost a lot of speed. And being on the right-hand side of these platforms here actually makes it significantly more difficult to get this dynamite pack here. I'll bring up the game here. So if you end up somewhere around here, then you can see I can't get the third dynamite pack from here. And that applies, like, if I'm on the right side here, like, I still wasn't targeting it. Whereas by contrast, if you're more in the center or more on the left side, then you will get it if you aim towards it. Like, it's really dumb how a lot of the lock-ons in this game depend very much on your current position. So I'm in range to get it here, and then if I move forward a little to something like here, okay, I can still get it from here, but I bet from here I will not be able to get it. Okay, I can still get it here. This is actually surprising. I have to wait for the thing to run out because I have the blaster. Okay, now I can't get it from here. So if you just end up with this sort of running angle and you just take a wide turn here, then if you just fully commit to this and expect to get all 3 dynamite packs and just do a hover jump like this, then it's just not going to come out, and you're going to have problems there. So what I typically try to do is just have, like I said, pretty much land on here the way that you did, but then just try and turn to the left a bit, rather than turn to the right. This can be tricky because of being so close to the sand, and it looks quite scary. But getting the dynamite packs like that is like the fastest you can do that there, without losing any speed. So for this door break here as well, it is possible to start this a little sooner. Just because if you get like bad collision from the shots being too close to each other, then it's possible to basically miss one of the shots and the door could be solid by the time you reach it. At this point, when you're like hover jumping here, there's no reason that you can't be shooting towards the door at this point. But you waited until you were touched down on the ground here and significantly closer to the door before you started shooting for it. So this is just a little more risky for no real gain. That was... I mean, unless you are like really, really damn good at hover jumping, I would not recommend going for pole jump in that specific manner, because the reason that a lot of people like go from it from the door here is because the door is slightly higher up, so it gives you a tiny bit more leeway to actually get the hover jump height. If you do it from here, then I don't know if it's a frame perfect hover jump, but it is like not far from it. So, like, yeah. Yeah, if you don't hover there, the shot is harder to hit, but it really doesn't do any harm to just do a short hover there to stabilize yourself and be able to get the shots a bit earlier, because it applies for some doors later in the stage as well. If you're comfortable getting this though, then fair enough. I just think this is really, really difficult. Like, you almost got it there, so it's like fair enough. So now you're just going for axle jump, I assume. Yeah, I would just recommend doing axle jump earlier here. Like, you're waiting until you're halfway across here. I don't know if you think that the wall is easier to clear here because this fence looks like it's lower, but it's not. The wall is actually uniform the whole way across, so it doesn't make it any easier to do it at this point. It's actually just a bit slower to do it at this point because you're taking a longer path. So if you're gonna use axle jump as a backup, then the fastest way is just to do it like this. Okay, I had to manually readjust there. So the best way to tackle axle jump is like this. Just try and get out as soon as possible there. And then this is something that I've highlighted in a previous PB as well, so I may as well just do it, say it here for general benefit as well. Typically, what a lot of people miss out on with hidden base is camera control. There are a lot of spots in hidden base, such as right here, where it's very helpful to force free cam by doing the same thing I did in Green Forest, just tapping the shoulder button while you're out of bounds. That will change the camera from auto camera to free camera. It's much better in this position because you can see the camera is slightly under me. So as I'm flying towards where I'm trying to go, which is these platforms here, I will not be able to see where I'm trying to land when I actually get over there. But in this position, if I force free cam by tapping the camera button, the camera angle moves to above me, and now I can see where I'm trying to go, and I can also now use a visual cue to gauge when it's safe to actually drop and get grounded as soon as possible. Typically, at the point when where you're trying to land passes the bottom border of the camera, that's actually typically when it's safe to drop. Like, you can see that I did it there, and I landed like right at the edge there. So if I had a straighter path there and a little more speed, that's even safer to go for. But there are multiple spots in hidden base where once you like get out of bounds slightly, you want to be tapping the shoulder button to force the camera to follow you again.
Imagine failing pole hop. Imagine jumping off so late that you have oodles of height.
You got more ground time, quote unquote, with what you did there, but the point is, like, it does make the route quite a bit longer, and I don't think it comes out as faster. The only thing I noticed here was that by releasing from this hover jump slightly earlier, you can get grounded immediately, because I think you probably know to go for this, and you probably did intentionally go for this and just missed it slightly, but you have like quite a few frames of airtime here, whereas the ideal release looks bit more something like this. Holy shit, I didn't realise I was on the pulley there. I don't have a checkpoint either, do I? No, okay. That dynamite pack's really trying to get me. So again, just trying to force free cam to make it a bit easier for myself there. And again here. So then if you just go a little earlier here, you can see you get grounded as soon as you clear the ledge, and you get, you know, the flame here, which means, oh, you're going really fast. So something to aim for. A bit of like an in-between jump off, yeah, as you're saying. Nice, that is not an easy hover jump. So no complaints there.
Well, this is faster than last run. I mean, so long as I...
That looked like you went about the right time. It's difficult to actually, because I can't hear the game audio here, and I don't know if you could hear it on your end, I actually used the rings as a cue for where to go, for when to jump there. Like, let's do this again. Yes, I've used Spade's tool to give myself 99 lives. I'm sick of having no lives remaining. So when I go up the pulley here, I just wait for the fourth ring sound and then do a hover jump. And that gives me a pretty nice timing to land on the pulley like this. Oh, you run without audio? Okay, that's not going to be helpful then. That's very controversial, very suspicious. But yeah, if that's your choice, then I guess that's your prerogative, since it is currently allowed in the rules.
In the end.
I don't really like running over the bomb there, but...
Really
Okay, you tried to go for the fast strat there and then just didn't get the door in time, but that is the fast strat, so if you can do that, then definitely keep on doing that. That is the fastest way to do that section. And yeah, corners, just be careful of them. But do you take this correctly?
And I did that again. I thought I was gonna be...
Okay, so obviously getting caught by the floor part there was not the best, and you can be letting go of that pulley that started pulling you up a little faster as well. I prefer to play it safe here because I'm not very good at this game. So you can let go of this pulley pretty much as soon as you see it pulling you up. As long as you are holding down and you just go get a decent hover jump as soon as you see yourself going up, you will make it to the next pulley, like, immediately. And it's fairly safe. Because if I go back to your game feed, what I'm expecting to see... Hello? What I'm expecting to see here is that when you get to the pulley, you're probably going to have spare height, and the game is going to force Tails down onto the pulley animation, which is like the objective indicator that you have spare height.
And I did that again.
Yeah, you get forced down a little bit here. Like, I've seen people be way higher up, but there's a little bit of spare height here as well, so that's just like a couple more like tenths that you can shave off there if you want to do it. Like, as soon as you see yourself moving up, you can pretty much just react to that and go, and as long as you haven't got a horrible hover jump, you will make it to the pulley pretty consistently.
I thought I was going to be able to walk, but I was not.
Okay. Yeah, this is the fastest route here, so that's nice. This is one of the other sections, though, where you want to be forcing free cam, like I say. Just force free cam in this section. So that you can see where you're going. By tapping L once you're out of bounds. Oh. Yeah, nice. So get out of bounds, and then tap. And you can see where you're going. And it's just easier to deal with. Specifically because, yeah, you take a very wide path here, and you, at no point do you actually collide with the fence that's on the left side there. And having a lot of collision time with the fence is the best case scenario. Like, if at all possible, what you want to be doing here is... Please? I can just get on here normally. Okay. So if at all possible, what you want to do is like clip out here and get these enemies as quickly as possible, clip in early and run along the fence here, because this is one of the surfaces that gives you a speed boost when you run along it. Like, I'm going a little faster than normal by running along the fence like that. So the earlier you can clip back in there, if you've destroyed the enemies, you will actually go slightly faster by running along the fence. Okay. Same thing here, with the pulley to pulley jump that I mentioned before. You can go much earlier here. Pretty much as soon as you see the pulley start to pull you up, you can just go, and you will have enough height. You will need to take a slightly curved path, but it's like, it is still faster, I want to say. Because you've got like max speed there when you touch down, and like you can't go directly towards the spring, but you can still pretty much get there with a jump. So I think it's slightly faster than waiting for the extra height. There's always a lot to talk about in Hidden Base because it's just such a complex stage with so much going on. Same with Pyramid Cave, but a lot of people actually seem to be a bit stronger at Sonic than me.
Yeah, I was just doing a no reset and I was plus
The very start of Pyramid Cave, I can't... It looks to me like you're just using upright here to try and land on the speed pads. The movement is actually very counterintuitive here, and it doesn't work like that. if you want to actually land on the speed pads earlier or get a faster start in Pyramid Cave, you want to actually use down left input. You're going to have to take my word for this because I don't have an input display active here, but I am using at the start here down left input, and then I just rotate it clockwise to upright, and it should hopefully actually land me closer to the pads, if not on the pads. Like, you can see there's a short period where Sonic is clearly moving down left. And that happens. Whereas if I just hold it like that, then yeah, if I just hold upright to begin with, then the spin dash doesn't even come out in time for hitting the speed pads. Whereas with the other way, the spin dash comes out here when I'm already in progress, and that's just generally a little faster, I think. Like, that's just a really counterintuitive piece of movement. It makes no sense to think that's the fastest way to do it, but it honestly is.
But hopefully I won't even have to submit it to the leaderboards.
Like, I didn't know that until it was pointed out to me by somebody else. It was Mustache specifically who told me that was faster. And that was a long time ago now. Oh yeah, this... You've just got to make sure you are, like, hard in the corner there, otherwise that doesn't work very well. The geometry bounce, it's being in the corner that makes that work. Yeah, just don't do this homing attack too early. Because, for some reason, these animals count as homing attack targets. So if you're too close to them, Sonic will prioritize those over just going forward, generally. I'll instead, like, do this myself, and I'm going to wait a little longer before I do the homing attack. Sonic hopefully will not go for the animal. This is a horrible start. Oh, it matched up with the timing. That means I'm going really fast, guys. You can also just make sure you're getting a full spin dash charge there as well. Full spin dash charge really helps there. So, okay, get the enemy. And I just wait until I've jumped a little higher and then do the homing attack, and Sonic will not go anywhere near the animal. Yeah, that's one spot where homing attacks actually are a bit detrimental rather than helping out. Just do a full jump and hold forward and you'll cope with that a lot better. The movement here is very tricky, honestly. Getting a clean route here is a lot easier said than done because the walls do so much to stop you. I've put quite a bit of practice into this and I still don't get it right consistently. And I use this method myself, the balance there. But then I just try to do that. But that's surprisingly precise, and I really can't fault anyone for not being able to do that. Just try and like work on it and try and get it, because it's surprisingly easy to lose a lot of time on first door skip like that. Like, at the point where you're taking multiple bounce attempts to get over the door, you're actually bleeding quite a few seconds, and it's surprising how quick the time loss appears there. But that is a very difficult part to get right. This is part why Pyramid Cave is like the most difficult stage in the game, because there's just so much technical stuff at every point. So I'm going to rewind this a little because I think this was directional input coming off here. Yeah, your angle is clearly changing here. I don't recommend doing this myself. This is again something I've pointed out in other analyses. This is a spot where neutral stick input works very well. And I'm just going to see... Yeah, you are clearly using directional input throughout the whole thing there. This is a section where I actually use as little directional input as possible. So, right now, I'm not holding any button on the control stick. I've even got the crouch prompt, so I'm not even holding the B button. I'm just going to unpause the game with no directional input. And this rail drops you off on an angle where you are just running in a straight line along here. Like, you will just run straight down here. Especially if you hold the crouch throughout the whole rail. Like, I need to go back up the rail and show this. So I'm going to enter this rail with max speed and then do nothing other than hold the B button. And you end up like all the way down here. So like with max speed you end up all the way down here, and that was with like holding the spin dash charge. So the best thing you can do here is wait for Sonic to just get pushed around here, and then just angle the spin dash to the right like this. Just let it go towards the wall, and then again go neutral. Like the only directional input I'm using here is... I'm just going to let this ghost catch me so it gets out of the way. The only directional input I'm using here is this, tapping right. And then at this point, I'm again neutral. I let the spin dash go, and as soon as Sonic hits the wall, he just flies parallel to it at max speed. So that's a super simple way to do that, with like minimal inputting required and without aggroing the ghost. So let's show that going hopefully well from a neutral start on the rail. Lol. These rails are really annoying. Anyway. And you can just do that pretty simply like that. Try not to hit the snake rail on the very right side though. Like, regardless of if it's like slower or faster, it is a hell of a lot safer, I think. And if it is slower, it will be by a very negligible amount. It's just something that I would recommend there because, I don't know. I like it a lot, either way. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, it's just, I'm just offering it as an option. Nice door skip.
Well, this is a lot faster than last run.
I would recommend avoiding the speed pads here.
This is a lot faster than...
Like, you want to go around this speed pad to the left. This thing locks your controls, caps your speed. It's just not good to use that speed pad in general. I don't think. The second hallway in general is very hard to conserve your speed on though, so let's like just do a comparison point. If Sonic can jump. I don't know, like it doesn't look significantly faster to me, but there's more things that can go wrong by hitting that speed pad than by not hitting it, in my opinion. Cutting on the inside is probably an option, but I am fairly sure people have never really intentionally gone for it, and there must be a good reason for it. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Nice backup here, though. One backup that's worth mentioning here, if you're trying the super bouncers and if just nothing is fucking going correctly here, like if you're just having problems here, standing at this point where like this floor seam is, I haven't got my game up, lol. So standing at this point where this floor seam is typically a very good position to just angle a spin dash across and just let it go. You don't need any other inputs, you don't need to do a spin dash hover, you don't need to do anything. Just like if you're on the left here, just angle right, hold right and let it go, and you'll bounce up like that. Or if you're on the right, just angle left, let it go, and you'll bounce up like that. And if you're in this position, like you can see, it puts you in a nice spot to just be right here and get a bounce, because if you're much closer than this, then you're just going to risk hitting the ceiling like that, and then there's flames here which can kill you as well. But yeah, if you're just having a bad day with super bouncers, standing here, just do a spin dash across. That's a super quick backup that works pretty consistently. It looks dangerous, but it's actually very safe.
Please.
That snake skip was quite close, but it worked. So, nice. I'm not entirely sure what happened here. I'm going to take the, shit, didn't mean to skip ahead. Okay, this put me back in the correct spot. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened here when you took this corner. I'm going to frame advance this. Oh, you just bounced too early here, I think. I'm not entirely sure. Because I can't see what's happening here because of the camera. And then you did homing attack here as well, so I think maybe you thought that you'd cleared the gap. And then you homing attacked because you thought you were instead like up here over the ledge. That's all I can assume. But yeah, I think this was just a case of bouncing too early, is all I can say. Fuck that rail. I'm glad you got it. That's definitely the correct way to take that section. Nice. The full spin dash charge there was a little unnecessary, but I don't know if you're just uneasy with the execution for that. I think that's when people tend to hold spin dash charges too long, in my opinion, when people are not really comfortable with what they're about to execute, so they're giving themselves a little bit like stealing time and anticipation time to do something. You really want as much of your Sonic inputting and stuff to just come out as fluidly as possible. Like, I'll try and play the same section, and there should hopefully be like as little spin dash chain time as possible throughout that whole section there. Also, I missed snake skip. I did get the checkpoint, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Alright. I was actually close on my end as well. Nice. Wow, yeah, I like this section a lot. Like, that was an example of what I mean. There, I was not confident about hitting the rail, so I slowed down and gave myself more time to prepare for it. But at this point, you really, ideally, just want your, you want to have faith in your starting position giving you the right position for the end result to work, as long as you execute it all correctly. So in other words, once you do this, and once you do this bounce excel here, the rest should just be 3 spin dash chains, and after the 3rd spin dash chain, you can just do an upright super bounce, and it should work. Please, inputs. Like, you can just let that spin dash roll down the hill and it still works fine. But the 3rd spin dash chain sets you up in quite a nice position for that. And then, yay, last gravity bounce. 159 is obviously not the best pyramid cave in the world, but yeah, the stage had problems. And it's the most difficult stage in the run, so yeah. Practice, practice, practice is all I can say. Above the small flame. Oh, roasted keys. Okay, you're very indecisive here. I would recommend just this kind of goes for the start of knuckle stages in general. Just know what your strategy is at the start of each knuckle stage. I'll bring up the game feed and show like a quick example of this, of what I mean. So, almost regardless of what I see, I'm going to play Wild Canyon the same way every time. Like, assuming I don't have a piece right at the start, like beginning room or a ping, then my Wild Canyons to begin are always going to be glide towards the hit monitor, get it, punch, and just get into the wind tunnel. Like, I'm always going to try to start Wild Canyon like that. Similarly with Pumpkin Hill, you'll know from story mode runs that the strategy for the start of Pumpkin Hill is to always go over here and try and get a hint storage into the upgrade. So similarly, you want to ideally be doing the start of Death Chamber the same way every time, and I think just seeing probably a combination of the hint that you had and the free piece made you like hesitate and dither quite a lot. So my strategy for the start of the DC here is just to rotate the camera like that as the stage starts, so I can check for both bugs on patrol and roasted keys, and then I just get the hourglass here, and then my first hint. I think this is a slower way to do it, but as long as I'm consistently doing this, then I'm at least not wasting time from decision making, because I can make all my decisions in order. Like, I can do this and think, okay, I'm going for this piece first and get it, or roast the keys first. If I don't have either of those, I'm just getting the hourglass like this, and then I'm getting the hint, and it all flows a lot more naturally. So as long as you like develop a strategy that you consistently use at the start of the knuckle stages, you will lose a lot less time from decision making, in my opinion. Like, even if it's not objectively the fastest way to play the stage, the most important thing is that you're going to consistently execute it the same way every time. And fuck you for this RNG. I do not like you.
This run sucks besides RNG, and I hate it.
I hate you as well. My word.
Because of RNG.
Like, how is this allowed? Why can't my run have this RNG? Deary me. If I was playing this as well, I probably wouldn't have even gotten that as a free piece, because my instinct after getting roasted keys and then getting above the small flame, I would have had the upgrade here, and after getting this hourglass game feed, I would have known from the fact that I don't have a ping that it's the one at blue. And then at that point, I actually probably would have gone this way and done Booty Clip. So I wouldn't have even gotten Merry-Go-Round as a free piece. Whether that's a confirmed set, I don't know. But if I was playing that set, I think this is how I would have played it. Which, in this case, this would have been a mistake. Because I had Merry-Go-Round, and I missed it as a free piece. And then, even more of a mistake, after getting this, I probably would have just died on the fire for a respawn. So I would have not known that I had Merry-Go-Round, and I would have been throwing away a free piece. So, like, it's really indeterminate what the correct plays are in Knuckle stages. Again, like I say, unless that's a confirmed set. I don't know if that's a confirmed set. So that might be worth looking into in case you see that come up again. I don't know if Roasted Keys actually comes up in any confirmed sets, or in any good ones at least. Either way, though. God, that was silly. I hate that.
My new PB with me.
Don't ever talk to me on my run again.
Because I got a PB. Last run.
Okay, no fireball skip. Good. Fireball skip is a cursed strat.
Reset all in between. It was legit just last run. I got a PB.
It's fine.
You had a good 0 cycle?
You've got tons of time save on the execution stages, it's fine.
It was a pretty
and I'm showing you how to get it all. It's fine.
I was hoping to get a 202, but I was unfortunate.
That looks... okay, I didn't actually think you were going to get that, but that worked out fine.
So, you know, that was a bit sad.
Okay, you're a bit hesitant on when to go for these, but that's the only thing I can fault here. Specifically, what you can do for King Boom Boo is, as soon as he touches down, he's going to flash red 5 times, and then it's safe to go for him. I'm just going to slow the game feed down for this. Times 2.5. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, yeah, so like a 6 there, because the first one was like as he touched down. So in other words, like here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the final red flash. So if you can count those out, you can just use those as a cue for when to go. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now his iframes have run out. So if we speed that back up again.
6 seconds, it was at.
So
I was hoping to get a
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch. So you can go a little earlier, like on each of those punches, as long as you know that's what the cue is. That you can count the red flashes, like 5 after he's touched down on the ground, and it's safe to go. Like you can pretty much punch on the 5th red flash as long as you're not going super, super early. Super bounces are hard. It's going for, yeah, I can't fault this. If you're not really confident at getting super bounces, then you can lose a lot of time from attempting them. And before you've gotten a first hit, if you fall on the sand like this, then that's just a restart as well, because it's faster than climbing up top manually. That timing with the fist kind of sucked, though. That was, like, partly error, but also partly just this boss is dumb, and this boss's attack hitboxes linger a stupid amount of time. That was quite... almost good.
This egg golem is not.
Please don't go for another one at this point, though. Yeah, okay, good. Just waiting for the head smash. That's the correct play here. Alright, I don't know if you're aware of this quirk of Egg Golem, the how to stay on the arms safely after the head smash hit. So I'm going to go out to Egg Golem here, because this is quite handy to know. There is definitely a method you can use here to stay on the arm more easily. I'm good at this boss. I'm really good at this boss. This is actually not good for demonstration purposes because I'm racking up restarts, so I really want this to be 0 restart if possible. My god. Come on, game. Yeah, I'm still fairly run down and under the weather, so I'm not performing particularly well. Which is partly why I'm doing the analysis now, rather than hero story runs. Fine. I've started the fight, so I'm just not going to get greedy now. Well, I'm going to get greedy as in I'm going to keep going for them, but... So I'm back in the starting position, that's... well, ish. This is similar to the starting position. So I can actually get on the starting panel, which should give me a consistent position here. no, he bounced me straight past, for fuck's sake. I want to be able to demonstrate this, because this is quite an important piece of knowledge to have. I'm really bombing badly here. I'm just going to go for a normal second hit and hope that I end up in the right spot. Okay, this is a really awkward position to be in, but hopefully I'm going to land on his arm. You don't really have full control over this. Okay, yeah. So, what a lot of runners do here, which is incorrect if you're trying to stay on the arm, is at this point they're already like holding left or down left, because it seems sensible to assume that that's the best way to get Sonic to retain control. That's actually a really bad way to get Sonic to retain control, so I'm going to like throw this attempt to show unsuccessfully doing it. Right now I'm like holding left, or I'm going to unpause and I'm going to be holding down left. And what's very likely to happen is that Sonic is just going to skid once he lands on the arm. And he's possibly also going to come off the end of the arm after skidding. Okay, I actually retain control there, which is like not very common. Like, that's not supposed to work very well. So I'm going to get this again and show what you should be doing instead, which is a lot more consistent. Hey, look at that, I just needed to warm up a bit. Yeah. Alright, so instead, this is another part of the movement that just seems counterintuitive, like the start of Pyramid Cave. You actually want to be holding down right when you land here. And then as soon as you land, you'll have control of Sonic. You will be running down right towards the end of the arm, but as soon as you're grounded and running, then you can do a clockwise turn towards down left, and then up towards up left, and just start charging a spin dash. Like, that will work very consistently. You do it in that position. Also, that was an interesting spin dash. I'm just going to go under the stage as well. This is, like, not useful, but a lot of people just don't know this is a thing. There's a ring down here as well. Like, if you can grab that ring, then you win the game, basically. Either way, yeah.
What a shame. Aw, and I didn't go through the floor.
Yeah, Egg Golem's just a very hard fight.
Ethmar.
I think the ring is just directly underneath Egg Golem, but it's very, very hard to gauge because the camera is bad down there. Anyway, Eternal Engine. So, if the IL split says 131, then this is going to be new skip, I assume.
But of course, I still need to get Bofa.
Yes, you do. Okay. I mean, you got it, so fine.
Okay.
Not really convinced by the setup, though, because, I mean, you know, it's hard for me to criticize, because if the setup works for you, it works, and that's the most important thing, but it's a weird setup that I see there. I like using the JW method, which I'm just, again, going to show for demonstration purposes, just for anyone showing, for anyone watching, just so they have an option to run with. But this is what I definitely prefer to use for the Eternal Engine clip-out. Or just get the enemies out of the way to make sure they're not going to be jerks. So, the thrust of this strat is that you just want to start at like this point where the end of the red floor marker is. You can run straight up here where they're just lined up. When you reach the bottom corner of the second one, you then want to angle towards basically where Kuruk ended up here, so that you want to end up in this corner. And you can also use the laser from the Vulcan cannon as a direction cue, because the direction you want to face is very specific. Currently, the place that the laser is aiming towards, like just to the right of the boxes here, and aiming just towards the wall, this is pretty much exactly where I want to be aiming. So I can stand to aim like a little closer to the wall, but changing direction with the laser when it's already out, you can't really make fine adjustments, so this is kind of tricky to play around with. You want to just end up on the right angle and then hold it like this. This is pretty much exactly the right angle that I want. And then pretty much as soon as you hit the wall, you want to just do a short hop and fire a shot simultaneously. And if executed correctly, it should hopefully flip you out of bounds. I missed one of the boxes, which sucks. And wow, nice. That's why if you're going to use this approach with the laser, you really want to make sure that you're actually facing directly up before you fire the shot to make sure that that single Vulcan shot goes nowhere near the boxes. Or just do it like this as well, and then you can turn around. Yeah, that was never going to work because everything about my setup was off there. Got it there. So that's exactly what I'm talking about there. But this skip is really just a case of play around with different methods, and if it works, that's the most important thing. This clip out is really, really dumb. And everyone seems to have methods that work better for them. So, like, that's the method I like. I think that's a fairly consistent option, as consistent as this skip can be. But if you just can't get it to work, then don't sweat it and just play around with what other people are using. Alright, so...
That's sort of been the theme of this run.
Yeah, there's a lot of adjustment happening here. Oh, yeah, not really too convinced by this. Okay, ended up in the right spot. The problem is I use a specific cue for where to be to just drop straight into the goal ring, but I play on 4-3, and the cue doesn't quite work the same on 16-9. You were still basically in the same place, but I can't really describe what I do with the cue there. I mean, I can try here. Because it's still, it's similar. So basically, yeah, the way you drop off here, basically like the 4-3 screen border is just like narrower, so it would be like here and here-ish. The game screen is more like a square. So this green thing here, in 4-3, it's basically just off screen at this point. So I wait until I'm like directly beside it, and then I just go left so it's a little off screen. At that point, you start dropping like this, and then you can just turn around to the right and just drop into the goal ring, because you hovered down safely here, but you are directly above the goal ring, so you just went straight down into the goal ring. So, as long as you know you're in the right position, which that gives a pretty solid indicator that you are, it is safer than it appears to just drop straight into the goal ring. If you don't fancy trying to squeeze a couple more seconds out of it, I absolutely don't blame anyone for just using a safety hover there to give themselves more time to hit the goal ring, though, because obviously the most important thing is that you hit the goal ring. And if you're in the slightly wrong position, it's important that you're able to make an adjustment to save yourself. So, Meteor Turd. I don't know if there was a life here. No, okay. Maybe this is something you're generally overlooking. But what I saw here was just a glide to reach the ground and then punching once you hit the ground. But because you start on a non-diggable surface, just like an aquatic mine, you can just drill dive into the ground. So you can do that a little sooner. Like, what you're doing is this. And what you can do is this. So you can get the first punch off slightly sooner, and that applies to all non-diggable surfaces. It's just, again, a good habit to get into. Just don't punch multiple times, because that's not faster. But just a little movement thing to note.
A container that doesn't float. That should be...
Yeah, it's 2 A inputs and 2 B inputs. Jump, glide, dive, punch. It's just AABB. I would punch through that box rather than drill dive into it. Just because, again, being grounded is generally faster. This is probably the best hint to go for from here. But I think you're just dithering a bit here. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, you saw this as a free piece. Okay. Okay, yeah, I was wondering what you were doing there, but definitely correct call. So, okay, time to rewind and see if you did the correct quote-unquote free piece check here.
That should be in the middle.
I think that's the point where you saw it.
That should be in the middle.
So I think this is when you saw the piece here. And at this point, you didn't have enough time to grab it. Actually, Kinky, I have refuted this earlier in the analysis. Story mode Aquatic Mine is not the same as Stage Select. In story mode, you have control of Knuckles when he's in the air, so it's just A, B, B, A. You don't need to do a second A input in story mode Aquatic Mine. So, I can actually show here there is a consistent check method for this, so that you can grab this piece before you get the rocket, so this can be significantly faster. This is well worth using. And this is just holding both of the shoulder buttons when you take the spring. Again, to force free cam. Because if you hold both the shoulder buttons like this, you get this view, and you get a very clear view of this wall here. So if I don't hold the shoulder buttons, then this is the view that I get. Which is to say, not a good view at all. Until I manually readjust with one of the shoulder buttons. And then, if I hold both the shoulder buttons, you get a very consistent view of that wall. So you have a lot of time to see where the piece is. So I definitely recommend doing that, because since you're waiting to get down to the rocket anyway, there's no reason to not do that. It's a free piece check, basically. Because if you'd gotten that piece 3 as your first piece, then this, whatever this layout's going to end up as, oh yeah, it's black boxes on the black platform, it would have been significantly faster. Well, kinda, not really, because this, with this shit set, you still have to go down to get the rocket again. But you wouldn't have been, at this point, wasting time to get the third piece, basically, is what I'm saying. That's a rare piece, wow.
I wish I would have got that piece better. But, oh well.
Now you know. Now you can get it better. Well, if you hadn't had that as a free piece, this would have been a garbage layout. Like, your other stages were very good, but this was horrible RNG. Aside from the free piece kind of saving it.
Dude, Anvar, I don't know what it is.
Like, I can't imagine... Let's actually movement test this. Like, the sort of time you'd be looking at and not seeing that as a free piece. Okay, so, oh, I've got container that doesn't float. That's a bad piece, but whatever. And I've missed this, so I don't know that I've got third piece. Whoops, that was a mistake. And, ugh! Black boxes on the black platform, that's horrible. And diddle ding ding ding, and going down. And wandering, second and third levels, Dan's game. So if I'm going to the right corner quickly, this is probably still like a mid 45, but this can just probably be so much faster if you see the free piece. Let's try this with assuming that I've seen the free piece and grabbing it. So checking, checking, checking. Oh, hello, what's that? Assume got it there, diddle ding ding ding, and I know what my first piece is. This camera, what the fuck? That was really odd. So, one more left. And black boxes on the black platform. Oh, really bad last piece, but hey, it's whatever. It's one more piece. And then diddle ding ding ding. So you're saving like close to 10 seconds if you see that as a free piece.
But apparently, good RNG is time.
Good RNGesus. Alright, so Rouge. If you're going to insist on doing the ringless first hit, then you really want to squeeze as much as you can out of this. From the way that you started this fight, this looks like it wasn't worth doing. I'll see what the final time of the fight is. Okay, like mid 15, 15.69. Do I have a scene that I can start on Rouge? I don't know if I do. I think I've just got a scene that starts on Crazy Gadget. Yeah, I think this starts on CG. Yeah, fuck. Alright, I'm not going to bother demonstrating that. But the important thing on Rouge, I'll just try and demonstrate a little on your game feed. The relevant part to pay attention to is when you can start your inputs. That's really what I'm paying attention to in all the boss fights, when you can start the inputs for getting quick first hits. And in Rouge, it is when the timer pretty much hits 8. Like at 8:04, the text is going to disappear and the camera's going to start shifting around. That's when you have control of Knuckles. Yeah. So at this point, you have control of Knuckles, and you're waiting over half a second here before jumping, and you're also getting a full jump here, which is a little slower as well. Like, you got the drill dive hit, which is nice, but the point really is that you waited until Like, you waited until the camera was pretty much fully panned around before, like, jumping and gliding, when at this point you can already have jumped. At this point you can already have started gliding, and you can have the first hit, like, pretty much at this point when the camera is starting to pan around. Yeah, because it's always tied to what the timer is. If you take a death in this fight, the queue is different because of the, boss restart abuse. It's instead 7.2 instead of 8. You can be as low as possible on the jump. You can mash a double input and it's still correct. The important part is that you do the drill dive timing correctly. This is something worth practicing rather than just immediately going for in a run, because if you get it wrong, she will kill you. But it's fairly elementary when you've practiced it a little bit. Basically, like, at this point, you can have the first hit, basically. And then, after just backing away and getting the second hit after she counterattacks, the rest of the fight is the same. And that's how you're looking at, like, 14.6 times. So you can save, like, a second just from the faster first hit.
So, man, I wish I wouldn't have screwed up Metal Harbor so much.
The same thing is going to apply on Shadow 2, so I'm going to be looking at that as well. It's not the same time, but it's, again, a timer queue. A little early on the homing attack there, but it's very scary to miss that and end up on the top of the ceiling and need a super bounce to recover, so I understand why you did that.
Well, that was a slow start.
Yeah, so this is CGS if there's a 120. Just try, if possible, to chain spin dashes as much as possible. Hey, I'm in CG. It's convenient. Like, once I'm on that wall, I'm gonna chain spin dashes here anyway. I want this checkpoint just for demonstration. Alright, so what you did here is just letting a spin dash roll. Which, like, it's fine, it gets you to where you're going. But, it's slightly more optimal to just behave as though you're just doing normal movement on the ground and chain spin dashes. You can do, like, I think 3 spin dashes here. Well, 2. Okay, you can do 2 spin dashes there, so you can get a spin dash chain in, which keeps you moving slightly faster. Yeah, and then it gets you down here very promptly. It's been a while since I've, like, done CGS, but I will remember virtually everything about it. Oh, excuse me. So nice. This is the fastest way you can do this section, so that was nice. Okay, a safer method for getting on the floor here. I may as well just demonstrate this. Because I'm sure you've probably learned from experience that getting on the floor there is a little awkward. It's considerably easier if you do it in the corner. I think the game basically applies the same logic as when you were doing GC skip in Hidden Base, that multiple corner vertexes cause weird things to happen. But if you just do it in the corner here, it should be a lot more consistent getting on the floor. Like, it's easy to have awkward stuff happen if you just do it generally on the floor, like getting bounced around here. But I find it very uncommon if I do it in the corner here. Like, sometimes it can still happen because this game's just dumb. But this is generally safer for me. As far as doing the spin dash method here, I don't personally like this because, I mean, you can see I'm struggling. I don't know if you've ever seen the bounce method, but a very short summary of the bounce method, which I think is a bit faster and quite a bit safer, actually. Again, this is one of those counterintuitive strats. You want to actually hold down on the control stick here, which, if you hold down for, like, more than a second, it's like, yeah, you're going to run into the acid, but it won't immediately cause you to run into the acid. And as soon as you are just starting to hold down on the control stick, you can just do a very quick A and B input, like you're doing in a Golem Super Bounce. So you can pretty much just do down AB as quick as you can. And you should get a super bounce that goes into the center of the room. Well, not a super bounce, but just a bounce that goes into the center of the room like this. Once you've got free cam here, getting on the floor is considerably more difficult. I'm actually not entirely sure how to hit another, like, auto cam trigger here, but yeah, because I've got free cam now. But then you can just do the bounce method like this, and the enemy is really easy to hit like that. If you're uncomfortable with it, then like, yeah, don't bother with it. I'm just offering it as an option.
Come on.
Yeah, that enemy's a bit weird. Okay, this is something that you definitely can cut out. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna look at how the end here goes. Okay, that's about the right position there. But you can definitely cut out this part that you did here, where you like landed on. I assume this is just to gauge where you need to bounce, but it's kind of unnecessary. You can just like fall. Oh shit! I should have been on the floor. I'm gonna. That was my fault. I'm gonna die here so I can just do this again. Please put me out. Yeah, I'm going in completely the wrong direction on purpose here, just to make sure I die. Alright, so I've got to do the skip again, but it's no biggie. And I remember when CGS was like the hardest thing in the game and I really wanted to be able to do the skip. My input errors there. Was a little awkward, but whatever. Okay, I've got to do the backup here. Which, if you don't know, is just face towards the floor. You'll easily get the attack to go to the floor like that, and then you can just progress as normal. Yeah, it's been a while since I've had to do the skip, so I'm a little rusty on all of the different parts of this. Like, even the corner's giving me a bit of trouble here. Been a very long time since I've regularly used the skip. Right, I'm going to make sure I'm against the floor this time, so that I'll get good camera. That's directly what causes that. If you get bad camera, it's because you went against the floor. You can just fall against the door here, just jump and bounce, and you'll still get out really easily. And then just make sure that you're going to fall here is exactly what you want to fall against. I'm too high. Oh, whatever. Worked. Alright, so I'm going to pause the game when I can. Currently, it's being very loud.
No problem.
Still in story mode. Right, well, I guess I'm following you. I'm on Eggman. I'm just going to pause at the start of Eggman in case I need to demonstrate anything. Okay. Okay, so rather than just immediately shooting at the start there, what I actually prefer to do is wait until my angle has changed before I start shooting. There's a couple of different ways that you can do the start of this fight. You can either get in his face and shoot him straight up immediately, because he won't start moving until you fire your first shot. So you can just fire a shot right in his face. Or you can do basically what you were trying to do there, which is intercept him as he's moving off. But I find it's a lot more consistent if you wait until you've angled that way before you fire the shot. I'm going to do it here. Restart the fight again. Excuse me. Like, you get that shot really easily, as long as you just wait until you've angled, in my opinion. Yeah, this is just a difficult to handle now. This fight is one of those ones where it rapidly gets out of control if you make a mistake at the start.
Well, that's a shame.
At least you can save time here. Yeah, I just wouldn't shoot at the very start like that. Like, you don't want to start this fight by mashing the fire button. D-Pro is right about a lot of things, but more often than not, bosses are not his strong point. Like, I've seen a lot of, well, multiple Dark Pro boss tutorials where there are some concepts he gives very suboptimal suggestions for. I'm your boss guy, alright. So, my method for this, at least, is we'll start from the start again. So consider this like a semi-tutorial for Eggman 2. So make sure you change direction, do the shots, intercept him. Just hover around. Every time you hurt him, he's going to do 5 shots. As long as he doesn't do some stupid AI quirk from being in the wrong position, like just running around. If he shoots when you hit him. Like, if he does the normal behavior, which is shoot back at you, he's going to fire 5 shots. Like, you can count them out after I get the hit. Well, 6 shots, I think. Either way, it's like 5, 6 shots. You can basically count them as he does them. So I'm reacting to that for my second hit. I'm hovering around him, and then I'm waiting until he's going to run out of shots, and then I just face up directly towards him and no-scope him in the face again when his iframes are about to run out. Like that. Hit 2. And then, like, barely anyone honestly does hit 3 properly. A lot of people just run out of the way of the laser. Like, this is everyone's favorite method for doing hit 3, and it's very, very unnecessary. Because you can just get a free hit in before he fires the laser. And then you can tank a hit from the laser, and you can just run out of it sideways, end up here, and just fire one more shot to end the fight. And it should, at the worst, be a consistent 15. Like, as long as you don't miss any of the shots, that should be a 15 at worst. Like, assuming that the execution is sloppy. Dark Pro's method by, like, exploding the capsule, like, it certainly works if you can get it to work, but I think there's too many variables in place for me to really be comfortable with it. And I don't know. I just prefer my method because Eggman's AI seems a lot more consistent when you do what I do there.
That's a big rip, dude. Mac.
I apologize.
That's
And this is probably just going to be FR skip.
I'm sad.
Like, a regular FR skip.
This run could have been decent.
I mean, that could have been a little faster, but then semi-IL strat, nice. Yep, this is pretty standard. Like, a slow start, which lost like a second there, like I said, but aside from that,
So
yeah.
18
And then
jump
bouncing.
off, that means I
Yeah,
can
this is just a regular FR skip.
Well, that's do the
Nothing to say about that. Just FR.
because it's bad if you miss and it's a fairly tight.
Could have been a 120. Like,
I mean,
I'll do the start myself, I guess. Try and compare. So, yeah, that was like a second faster than what happened in your PB, I think. And all that was really different was I started the first rail a bit faster. And possibly my rail speed in general was a little faster everywhere, but it wasn't significant. That's the only thing that was really improvable in that final rush, though.
But it's not.
Okay, yeah, how do you do the start without falling through the rail? So what I do, personally, is I make sure I have a little bit of up movement before I do it, because the general rule with rails in this game is that if the rail is too perpendicular to your bounce angle, you'll just go through it. As in, if you're trying to bounce onto a horizontal rail, you'll go through it. Which, if I don't do any input at the start here, it's going to be like too horizontal for me. Like, that's how you bounce through it. So what I do instead is I hold up a little bit so that I land on a more vertical part of it, and then I'm just bouncing onto the vertical part of the rail. I did it too much there. I'm kind of just tapping my up a little bit here. It's kind of hard to describe. But I'm basically making sure that I'm landing on a more vertical part of the rail. You'll find that on like in a lot of rails in this game, that if you try and bounce onto just a vertical, on a horizontal rail, you just won't bounce onto it. You'll go straight through it. Not unless you like try and homing attack straight onto it. And even then you can still go through them. Like in Pyramid Cave.
Tight, especially if you know the visual.
It's kind of done.
25. But alas, I cannot.
Okay, so the first hit here, what went wrong here? I think you just homing attacked too early after your jump.
But alas, I cannot.
Let's look at this in a bit more detail. The first jump was actually timed relatively well. This... the jump height is actually okay here. I think you're actually just behind him too directly. Because for some reason, there's just multiple variables that dictate how much speed you get towards Shadow here. One of them seems to be your jump height, and another one seems to be your like angle relative to him. I know it sounds silly, but I can go to Sonic 2 in Dark Story and demonstrate, because the final Dark scene starts on Sonic 2 and it's basically an identical fight. But I think if I start from directly behind him or without much height, I'm just not going to catch up with him in the same way that happened to you there. So I did it there. But he's not going very fast now either. So. Speed up, you fuck. Yeah, he's not going very fast after that first hit, so I'll have to restart here. Yeah, so this is a very easy position to end up in where you just don't have enough distance to reach him. Since that does make him slow down though, it can facilitate just getting the first hit for free if you react to it by that you can force that position, or you can, if you accidentally end up in that position, I'm going to try and get it again. I can't fuck it up, I'm too good at this fight, I can't fuck it up on command. I can't get this wrong. Holy shit. Alright, so if you end up like this, you can just press B to come out of the homing attack. And now since Sonic has slowed down, another one should hopefully catch up with him. And of course in Hero Story, the opposite. If you're playing as Sonic and fighting Shadow, it's an identical fight, like I say. And then the next one should hopefully catch up with him. But the idea behind this is that you want to have a lot of height and you want to be diagonal to him. So, again, pretend this is mirrored, pretend I'm going to the right. I end up on the far left side there. In Shadow 2, I'd be ending up on the right side. And you can start the inputs at exactly 6 on the clock, so you can jump at 6. And hopefully catch up with him really easily there. And then Shadow doesn't have the bounce bracelet, so this fight is worse. Bail out. Don't try and kill him. You got so lucky there. That you're very lucky to have actually finished that fight, because this fight has a hidden mechanic where with the falling platforms like this, when the platform gets low enough, Shadow automatically uses Chaos Control. Regardless of what else he's doing, regardless of the state that he's in, once the platform gets low enough, he uses Chaos Control immediately. And I was so convinced that you were dead here. I was convinced that he was going to Chaos Control right here and that you were just going to do that. I mean, yeah, if you wanted to just big ball it, then I suppose, but that seemed like a very unnecessary risk to me, and I think that's going to backfire more often than it succeeds. So the more logical choice to bail out is just after this hit, I would have just carried on, bounced up and carried on as normal. But, you know, it worked, so whatever. And overall, a very nice run, and I think this was quite a fun one to analyse. There was quite a lot of new stuff to comment on, and yeah, a lot of good play, some not so good play, but also some things that I've highlighted that I think is new knowledge for you, so should hopefully help take your game to the next level. There's definitely a lot more good than bad in this run though. I was quite impressed by the standard of some of the Tails play, as I mentioned.
For hosting me right as I do this top-notch hero PB.
Yes, I agree. The first half of the Prison Lane was really good. The Mission Street was really good. Yeah. The Tails, I think, was actually probably the strongest character in this run, which is quite uncommon to say that Tails is often a runner's strongest character, but I think Tails actually is your strongest character in general. But yeah, I hope you found this quite helpful. If there's any other queries, whatever, or something particular you want me to look at, then of course just let me know directly. I can do that. I will be highlighting this so that you or anyone else can watch this at a future time. Just refer back to it. And I'm now going to